you've got yourself something funky.
Yo, what up, Ma?
Hey everyone. Hey. Hey Scott.
What's up, Ma? What up, YouTube? It's another week of He Said,
And
She
hey,
Said.
yes it is. And today, y'all, we're gonna be talking about the crack epidemic. And it's something that I lived through, and I was talking to my son about it, and he had given me some information, just telling me about what he felt about it, and how some of his friends are the children of those crackheads that we had back in the 80s. So before we get started, I just want to say hi to anybody who showed up. Thank you for joining us. And the way we're going to handle this is I'm going to first talk about what I remember about being a young person back then and how the crack epidemic looked to me, and being, in my early 20s. And a lot of the people that I grew up with were either addicted to it or they were selling it. So they said that the crack epidemic occurred like between 1980 and 1990. Now, the thing is that it depends on when it hits your city. So I grew up in Cleveland, Ohio in the 80s. In 1983, I would have been 18 years old. So at the age of 18, I don't remember hearing anything about crack. Now, that's not to say that it wasn't in our city. It's just that the friends that I was around and the people that I was hanging out with, we hadn't heard about it. So during that year when I was 18, I was going to go to college the next year. So I spent a lot of time working, two jobs trying to save money up for college. So I really wasn't hanging out that much. So when I turned 19, I went off to college, and I was coming home for, on my breaks and all of that. So I remember one time when I was about 20. Now, this would be about the first time that I heard about crack. Because remember, again, it swept the country, it hit different cities at different times. So when I was about 20, this is my first introduction to something that was hitting our neighborhood that I had just heard about. So I had gone to this party when I was about 20. And you know how back in the day, like, and I'm pretty sure nowadays, when somebody want to smoke reefer, a lot of people don't want you to smoke it in the house. They make you go outside. So I was at this house party, and I guess some of my friends, they wanted to smoke some weed, so they stepped out in the backyard. And I just remember that my friend's older brother started yelling at these people that were in the backyard. And basically what he was saying is, the party's over. I already had a problem with y'all smoking weed, but you're not going to bring this stuff to my parents' house, blah, blah, blah. So he ended the party. And when we were leaving the party, I was like, asking my friends, what is he talking about? And so my one friend was like, Rachel, he on that stuff, that guy. So I was like, what do you mean that stuff? Because I hadn't, I didn't know what they were talking about. And they was like, this new stuff that came out and everybody lacing their weed with it. And I was away at school. I didn't know nothing about it. In college, the most that we did, I went to Kent State University. And the most that we did, we drank a lot of beer, because when we were 19, you could drink beer legally, you could buy it legally. So The people that I
You
was
was
hanging around,
19. When you was young, you was 19. Y'all was able to drink there.
we could buy it legally. Yeah, we could drink and buy it legally. Like we couldn't buy liquor, but at 19, when I was 19, you literally can go in the store and buy beer. So we driving away, and that person start telling me, it's this new drug, and people are lacing their weed with it. So I didn't think anything about it because one thing, y'all, I never really smoked. I tried it twice in my life. I did it. I tried some reefer when I was about 17, didn't like it, and didn't try it again till I was probably about 20 or 21. So I've only smoked it twice in my life, and I don't even know if you could call it smoking because right after I hit it, a minute later, I was trying to wait till the effects wore off because I just didn't like it. So I go back to school. I'm 20. I come home for summer break, and I was 21. And in the neighborhood, hanging out with people, and I start hearing a little bit more about this drug that was people were smoking. But because again, I was working and I was trying to save money for school, I really didn't hang out as much. So y'all, few months pass, I get pregnant with this boy that you see on here with me, Scotty. I was a junior in college and I had gotten pregnant. So what I had to do is I left college and I came home and had him, and 5 minutes after I had him, I had got this job working for this law firm. Now at the time I didn't have a car. I didn't So I caught the bus to work. It was just one bus downtown, and it would drop me off in front of the place that I worked. But what was happening is I would have to be at work at, I think it was 8. And when I would be going to work, I would start seeing all these people out at night. So I started asking my friends, I was like, what? It's like it's a whole different subculture that only comes out at night. And like by the time I was going to work, they would just be dragging in. So my friends start telling me,
It was the
like,
nightlife.
right. It was a whole, like, the crack epidemic started this whole nightlife. And I grew up on in the hood in Cleveland, and basically what was happening is the dope boys would be out selling drugs at night, and then you would have the people that's smoking it, trying to get it, and then you also had something that we call strawberries in Cleveland, and basically a strawberry was a woman who was selling her body to buy some drugs. So right after I had him, I was about 24, Scott, and that's when it started to get serious. Because what started happening is what I a few months ago didn't understand, it just bust out on the scene. Now let me tell y'all what was happening. A lot of my friends that I started out elementary school with, y'all, I started noticing that they started looking bad. They were losing weight, and they would be looking just like bums, and smelling. And so that's when I started to realize whatever this stuff is that's out here is messing people up. Because y'all, it was not only like my friends, and for the purposes of this video, I'm gonna talk about what I know. And I had a group of friends that I grew up with, so I want to focus on what I started seeing happening to them. So you had the ones that you could tell had started smoking crack. And then I had boys that I grew up with and some girls who started selling it. Okay. Now, what happened was we started seeing these dope boys starting to make a lot of money. And it was a lot of stuff going on in the streets at night. Like after that, when I was around 24, I got a car. So I started being out more at night. And y'all, when I tell y'all that where I lived at, it would be certain stores that open during the day. That you would go to your neighborhood little grocery store and all of that. They would be open in the day. But then Like when they would close around 10, 11 o'clock at night, it used to be these other stores that would open that you never even knew it was a store, only if you were out at night. And I was telling my son about this. So those stores would sell, like, I guess, drug paraphernalia, like, what did I tell you?
Troy,
What was,
Troy,
what did I
Penn,
say it again, Scott? What did I tell you they were selling?
pins, Troy,
Choi, yeah.
pipes, lighters,
And they would
hot
sell
dogs.
right, they was single cigarettes, stuff that crackheads, because crackheads don't have a lot of money, so they would sell like a hot dog with a bun, and like maybe you can get a hot dog and like a pop for like $1. They would sell the hot dog for 50 cents, and maybe the pop for 50 cents. That way the crackheads, I guess, when they out there wandering around, if they got hungry, they didn't have a lot of money. If they was spending the money on crack, what they would be buying at the store wouldn't cost a lot. So these stores opened at night. And I used to be driving through Cleveland, like maybe I had went out or gone over a girlfriend's house or something. And then I would notice all these people out, y'all. When I tell you, it would be 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, and the streets down the way, that's what we call the hood, down the way, will be packed like it's 5 o'clock in the afternoon, with cars and people running for back and forth across the street. Then, y'all, as that year went on, more and more of my friends started to get strung out. Now, y'all, again, a lot of these kids that I'm talking about, I went to elementary school with them. I knew them ever since we were in elementary school. And to watch them fall apart, it was crazy. And to watch the boys that I grew up with, first of all, first off, they were like little young dope boys standing on the corner. Okay. Then the money was so lucrative and they could make so much in a night. And I was just telling my son this before I came on, that young boy that you grew up with, next thing you know, he has gotten so big that now he has others working for him. He not actually standing on the corner anymore. Basically, what I was explaining to my son is, in a certain neighborhood, just say it was this one guy selling. Well, he didn't want the little dope dealers, the baby dope dealers to sell. So basically, he would tell them the only way you can sell on this block is if you selling for me. Now, another thing I was telling my son, if you ever watched the movie New Jack City, that's exactly how growing up during the crack epidemic was. They would move in, and you remember in the movie when those guys moved in and they took over that apartment building.
You
That's
can't
exact
go down or lay down.
right. I even know of some guys who would they had made enough money where it took them up out the neighborhood. Basically, y'all, they was living in little baby mansions out in the suburbs. And what they would do though is they would rent a house down the way. Like they will rent a house or either going into an abandoned house and set up shop. And that's where, and y'all, it's weird that I know all this stuff. I know my son,
Bro.
I know my son tripping, but because a lot of my friends were doing this, I know a lot about it. So basically, they would rent a house down the way and they would set up shop.
But you never tried it
Say
though.
what, Scott?
But you never tried
No,
it.
no, I don't even drink. I couldn't even smoke reefer boy, let alone. And thank God. And what I told my son is, thank God that I never was a big drinker. I never got into smoking weed because, like I said, I would say out of 10 people, 10 of my friends back in the day that smoked weed, probably 8 of them was caught up in the crack thing. They either were selling it or they were taking it. That's how bad it was. Now, Scott, let me just go on. So it was getting really bad, y'all. It was to the point where the our whole neighborhoods was just messed up because you couldn't really pull up to a gas station, you couldn't pull up to a light. Crackheads was running up to you trying to wash your windows for $2, $3. Y'all, I have seen some crazy mess. I was telling my son about one time I was down the way and I was sitting on my friend's porch and this car kept circling the neighborhood and I guess they were looking for some drugs and they had some kids in the back seat and the kids were not strapped in. They had circled the neighborhood and they were driving slow looking for dope boys. And one of the kids, now this child looked like it was about 3 years old, fell out the damn back window of the car. They were so intent on looking for drugs, they didn't even know that the kid had fallen out the window. We had ran off the porch like, oh my God, your baby land, come back, your baby fell out the window. Y'all,
Oh my
it was,
gosh.
yeah, it was bad. And then as it moved through Cleveland, where I live, there was different neighborhoods where you knew not to go at night. That it was bad. It was bad. You would hear gunshots. You would wake up in the morning. It would be all kinds of drug paraphernalia, in the neighborhood of. It was evidence of what had occurred overnight. Now, y'all,
Yeah.
now I want to talk about the aspect that a lot of people my age and who are from my generation felt about Ronald Reagan and his damn wife. Now, unlike it is now, where these people are strung out on these opioids, and the government is opening up all these centers, and it's a crisis, and they calling them victims, and all of that. The crack era was as bad, if not worse, than what's going on now. Here's what I think is the difference. I think that what the difference is that in the drugs that they're taking now actually kill you. And also, more importantly, is messing with white kids in the suburbs and stuff. So in the 80s when crack was out, they didn't see us as victims. They saw us as criminals. So not only were they putting the drug boys in jail, but if they were catching a crackhead with crack, they was putting them in jail too. See, it wasn't all this recognizing that they were, victims of this drug that was sweeping not only the city of Cleveland, where I grew up, but sweeping the country. They saw it more as these black people are acting a fool, lock them up, just lock them up. So a lot of people that are from my generation, we think of Reagan and it brings to mind a government that did not step in and help. They came in, just like I said in my little promo video for this, they came in with guns, they came in with handcuffs. Y'all, let me tell you something. It is There are boys that I went to high school with that I ran into like in my 30s and in my 40s. And some of them were just getting out of jail from getting in trouble selling drugs when they were younger and getting some heavy time, 15, 20 years that basically they were just getting out of jail when we were in our late 30s, early 40s. Because unlike what's going on now where the government is stepping in and helping everybody, or opening up centers or recognizing that a crackhead is an addict, not a criminal. See, I think that's what makes my generation mad at what's going on now because we're like, this is hypocrisy,
It was yeah, it was an epidemic and and they didn't help the people who was addicted to crack, but nowadays they want to help the people who addicted to opioids.
That's true. So I started saying like, why is it that they have sympathy for these people that are on these pills and they didn't have any sympathy for the crackheads that was around y'all. I don't know if any of y'all are um I don't know if any of y'all are from that generation, but another aspect, and me and my son was just talking about this before I came on. A lot of people in my generation, we believe, a lot of us believe that because it was so much money involved in crack. And let me just break down the difference between the money that was involved with crack and the money that's involved with these pills and this opioid stuff. And I was trying to make my son understand this before we came on. When the crack era was going on, you had a whole bunch of young black guys who had become, what did I call them, Scott? Dope,
Kingpin.
dope, yeah, little dope kingpins. Literally, there's a boy, and I call him boy because now when this all was happening, we were young. He's my age now. But there's a particular boy that I grew up with that literally, y'all, he was like 19, 20 years old. He had gotten so big that he was driving Benzes and what was the other car that I told you? Because we didn't have Lexus and all that stuff back then. I can't think of the other car. I just remember he had a black Benz, and I think we were like 20, 24 or so. So the point I'm trying to make is that crack was cheap. So they were making money fast and they were making a lot of it. The difference is back then you had a little dope, young dope kingpin in every neighborhood. They were all over the city and it was a lot of them. What I asked my son before I came on is I was like, where in the city that we live in, because he's young and he would be out there, do you know of any kingpin that is in the neighborhood that you know where they are? Is it a lot of them? And he was like, not that he knows of. See, when we were younger, you had a little kingpin in every neighborhood. And when I say kingpin, y'all, I mean literally. They had set up shop just like in New Jack City. When you watch that movie New Jack City, that epitomizes the life of this young guy that I told y'all about, that I actually went to elementary school and watched him rise. Literally, he had people working for him. He took some of those crackheads off the street, put them in his little mini mansion. They were like butlers and maids. And I think he kept them cracked up enough where they worked for him and they treated him like he was a freaking god. When he would come into down the way into the neighborhood and drive through with his Benz, it was just like it was in New Jack City. Y'all, that's how much money that those little young 18 to 22-year olds were making back during the time that crack was big. Now, getting back to the government, a lot of people in my age bracket that went through that crack epidemic, they actually believe that the government bought that stuff into our neighborhoods. And I believe that the reason why they believe it is because it was so bad and we kept wondering why they wouldn't send help in. See, and Scott, you can speak to this. Nowadays, when there is, like with this opioid crisis, you can get treatment through your parents' insurance. Like literally, I work at an insurance company, and I can't tell y'all how many of these white folks are calling in trying to find rehab centers, and their insurance is paying for their child to be in that rehab center, which is no problem with that. But the thing that I'm saying is they did not do all of that when crack was in. If they were doing it, I know about it because I seen too many people messed up. So my generation believes that maybe some of them politicians had their hand in that money, and that's why they did not, I guess, stop it or
Stop it. Yeah.
say it again.
Yeah, so they didn't try to stop it because they helped bring it here. It came on military planes. I heard that. I heard that before.
Yeah,
We seen that
yeah.
in movies, American Gangster,
You said you saw that in where?
and movies, American
Um,
Gangster.
well, that movie I don't think in that movie they were doing, it wasn't crack. The a good
It
example of,
was.
was it crack?
Yeah, he brung it in. It was coke, but then they cooked it into crack. That was the that was the point of the movie. It was blue magic. He had made it a product. He had made his own product.
Oh, that's right. But the movie that to me put me more in mind of the reality of the crack epidemic is New Jack City. Literally, when I first saw that movie, I was sitting there like, oh my God, they really captured it. We a lot of people, like I said, in my generation believe that the government helped the crack epidemic spread. Uh, but what's his name? Reagan and his wife, their thing was back then, they were telling people when the black community was like, can you help us? They was like, just say no to drugs. I remember my mother sitting, I remember Nana Scott sitting and watching television, and she was like, just say no. They're already addicted. You know, they need help. They don't need, this was truly an epidemic. Y'all, it was bad. Now I'm gonna tell y'all something, and just experiencing both of these epidemics, I don't know if I feel this way because I went through the crack epidemic. Um, but I almost feel like the that the crack epidemic was worse. I think because it was more out in your face, you can see it, you know. Now I know that we
It's
got,
still happening.
you said what
Daily.
now?
I said it's still happening.
That the you mean the crack epidemic?
Well, yeah, now they just have more options of drugs to choose from, but that started it. Started just a drug epidemic. Before that, had any drugs ever swept over the nation like that?
I'm okay, I'm trying to think. Like I'm trying to think. Do I remember? I can only say I just remember the crack era because here's the thing. And I was telling my son this before I came on, y'all. In the city that I live in, when I very first moved here, I ran into someone from my home city. And I hadn't seen her since we were like 14 years old, probably 16. So I was happy to see her. And, I was asking her about her life. Did she have any kids? Blah, blah, blah. You know how you run into an old friend from your childhood? So you want to hear about their life. And the first thing she told me is that she had been on that stuff, because that's what we call it. We'd be like, she was on that stuff all those years. And when I tell you this person, because y'all, crack, because it was so cheap, it did not discriminate. Let me tell y'all the people that I remember smoking, getting caught up in it and turning into crackheads, teachers, um, let me think. Our friends' parents, our friends. So not only would like one of my friends be on drugs, but they parent was on it. Um, People in my family, just everyday people. Because one thing that I was trying to explain to my son, remember, Scott, I was telling you that when crack first came, I don't think that a lot of people that smoked weed realized what they were smoking. They didn't know how addictive it was. So I had one friend that told me this is how it happened to them. They said that they threw a party at their house and they were smoking weed, and somebody introduced the crack to them to lace it with. Okay.
Yeah,
They said that week they had smoked up all their paycheck, like their entire paycheck. So they said the next weekend when they got paid, or the next time they got paid, instead of lacing it, they actually went out and bought, some crack and smoked it pure. I guess like, just crack by itself.
that's called a
The person,
primo.
well, they was primo at first, and then the second week they just literally went out and bought it. And then that what that person explained to me, this is what the person was telling me when I was just trying to talk to them about getting off, trying to get some help. They told me that it within 3 weeks, literally 3 weeks, they were addicted. Like they actually told me that the second week, they believe, looking back in hindsight, that the second week that they actually did it was the week that they were addicted. And
They was wanting it that second week, you know.
yeah, they were craving it. That's what made them go out and buy it. So when I was younger, I already was scary. Like I didn't really. I was a nerd, Charles. To keep it real, that's why I did. Being a nerd saved me from, and also I had an ass kicking mother who would have killed me. And it kept me from getting into a lot of things. And also, I was a late bloomer. So all of that, and not really drinking, not really, I only tried to smoke reefer twice in my life. So forget some crack. I wasn't trying it. And then when I was talking to my friends and seeing, just how bad it can get and just watching them. And another aspect of it, y'all, that really bothered me. And that's what brought me and my son, to talk about this today. I had a friend, and I was just telling my son this before we came on. When we were about, I'll give us 25, I was about 25 years old. My friend at that age had 11 kids at the age of 25. She was a crackhead. I don't believe that, and this is sad to say, y'all. I don't even believe that half the babies that she had, that she knew who the father was, because she was a strawberry. And, y'all, strawberries were what we called crack whores back in the 80s. They were Crack whores were a little different than the average hoe, y'all. I just gotta talk crass for a minute. The reason why the reason why I say that is because back in the day, the legitimate whores, just say they was charging $50, $40, $25 for whatever it was that y'all was gonna engage in. Well, a strawberry would do the same thing for about $5, $2, $3, just to get a bump, you know. And what I was explaining to my son, it's so weird that I know all this stuff, but this was the drug of my time. A bump was like if the person was selling drugs, and they would, instead of giving them a whole rock, they would cut off a little piece of it and maybe sell it to them for $5 or something. Because I think back then a rock was $20, so they would give them a little, I guess, a little slice off of it for $5. So the little strawberries was out turning tricks for $2 and $3, y'all. So they ran the legitimate hoes out of business, y'all. When I tell you that the crack era, it's weird, because what happened is, once I got older, I moved away from like the hood. But a lot of my friends that I went to school with, they lived there. So you're young, you're 24, 25. How I kept seeing all this is because I would go visit my friends, and then we would just be sitting on their porch. And because they lived in the hood, I would see all this stuff. Half of their brothers were selling it, and had become little baby dope kingpins. And so I saw all this stuff firsthand. Now getting to the kids, and Scott, this is where you came in. So y'all, one day I was talking to one of my friends, and I was complaining about these young people that I work with, and how they don't have no work ethic, and how their lives are so confusing, and they don't have any structure. So my friend had jokingly said, well, these them crackhead kids. So I was like, what are you talking about? No, I'm talking about the young people at my job. And she was like, no, Rachel, think about it. She was like, the average age of a crackhead baby is between the ages of 30 to maybe 45. Because like I said, y'all, I didn't know about crack until probably 88, 89, when my son, I only got one son, the one that's on here now, was 1 or 2 years old. And that's when I realized that it was a drug out there that was messing with my friends. Now, that's not to say that it wasn't out before, but that's when I became aware of it. But when my friend joked and said that these crackhead babies, I went home and I was laughing with my son. I was like, man, your generation, the kids, the young people that's your age, some of y'all is crackhead babies. And he did not find it funny at all. And this is where he's gonna come more into the conversation. So Scott, remember when we were talking about it, and I was joking about it, yeah, like these kids are all mixed up, and these young people don't have no work ethic and all of that. And what you started to tell me about them?
Yeah, they messed up. They are the product of a generation that was addicted to drugs, and it just carries on to the next generation. Like everything that you just named, it didn't go away. Like that's why I was asking, was there like another drug that people was addicted to before crack? Was it just this is the way now? Like it's all glorified in all of our music and everything. But like, you would think people would learn in the last generation, like what the game of that was, with the crack era or crack epidemic, what it led to. And you'll see the same addictions. You'll see people, on the corner selling it. And then
Well,
it,
see, I didn't even know that now. Okay, so you're saying that because I don't know nothing about all this stuff. So you saying that they be on the on the corner selling these pills or whatever it is that these kids are dying of. Now, how do they sell that stuff?
well, nowadays it's such a variety of drugs. We have more drugs. It's not just crack. You can get crack. You can get Molly. You can get ecstasy. You can get K2, Special K. You can get
Oh
all
my
types
God.
of drugs. You can get all types of pills, blue dolphins. It's a whole bunch of stuff.
And
Mushroom,
see, and see, let me
anything.
let me just say this. That as a parent, that scares the shit out of me. Here's why. And this is something like if anybody calls in that's of my generation, I want to ask this question because I did a little research. Let me just say this, guy, before we go on. I did a little research on the babies of the crackheads. Like, I wanted to know whether there was like any long-term physical effects to being born addicted to crack. Now, what I found out is this: they say, the scientists and the doctors and all of that, they say that they studied a group of babies that were born addicted to crack, and that there is no evidence that there are any long term physical things that affect them later on in life. But what they are showing though is that because their lives were were living in a home with a person that was addicted, maybe having to feed their sibling or take control of the house and try to find food when the parent was out, and being taken from their home, maybe put in the system or sent to live with nana, that their lives were in such an uproar. And that's what the problem is. That's what affects them years down the line. So let me just say it again. They're saying that doctors are saying that there is no long-term physical aspect of it that affects them, but the emotional, the mental,
Something wrong
the
with
the
you.
this, because they say that right after the baby is born, like when the baby is first born. And matter of fact, Scott, I don't know if you remember me telling you the story that when I had you, or it no, it was Amber. When I had Amber, my daughter, the person that was in the room with me, because I had a shared room, that was a crackhead, and she had given birth to the baby. And the very next morning, the Department of Human Service or whoever that is to come and take your child, they were there to take her baby away. Now, let me just say this, y'all. First of all, she was so high when they brought her in that I heard her when she woke up. She didn't even know why she was in the hospital. Now, let me just say that again. She had just given birth the night before, and she did not even remember giving birth. She woke up saying, "Where am I?" Now, I'm in the bed with my curtain pulled on the other side. My daughter was born in 94. So I'm in the bed, in the other bed, and then all this activity started happening. Her people came in, they brought the baby in, they were crying. I remember her mother walked over there to my side, and she wanted to look at my daughter, and she was apologizing to me for what was going on the other side of the room. And I sat there and listened to Department of Human Service or whatever that division is that comes to take the baby. I guess she had been involved. She had other crack babies, and they had told her that if this baby was born addicted, which they tested the baby, and the baby was, and they took the baby. It was a little boy. I'll never forget it. And when they took the baby, I was sitting there wondering, why didn't the family members take the baby? But I guess something was going on and they weren't allowed. The baby was put into the system. I guess, this is all I remember. They took the baby. So I don't know if she ever got herself together and got her baby back, or, was the baby just put in the system? But I'm gonna give y'all another statistic, and then Scott, I'm gonna let you talk. When I was doing a little research on this, they said that during the decade of 1980 to 1990, every year 310,000 babies were born addicted to crack. So in 10 years, we got 3.1 million babies that were born addicted to that stuff. And see, being the age I am now, that pisses me off now that I am older and I understand what the government could have done for the Black community back then, coming in with, rehab programs and programs to help those crackheads not only get off crack so they wouldn't lose their kids to the system, but it would have helped our neighborhoods, because the aftermath of the crack epidemic, you got so many Black men in jail, first of all, for getting caught up selling drugs. And then you got people recovering, babies all over everywhere because they were giving birth and them babies were being taken from them in the hospital. And then you got kids who grew up under, what was going on in their home, and now they're in their 30s and early 40s, and they're starting to have little problems because when they were younger, their foundation in their homes, it wasn't right, because they had a parent that was addicted to crack. So those are the people now that my son is telling me that he's running into.
But yeah, they crazy out here. They're yeah, addicted. It's a lifestyle now. Now it's like you doing it because such and such did it, and it's okay. Like everybody glorifying it nowadays. Like,
Well, I wanted you to talk about, like, how you were telling me that you have friends that have told you that they grew up in a home where their parent was basically, y'all, a crackhead, and what they went through when they were younger, and then how it has affected them now.
yeah, I've had friends like that. Like like they mother would be on drugs, and they would have to watch their siblings, and they would have to like make money for food. Like wouldn't be no food around, and then like the kids they was watching, they'd be jacked up like too, like they'd be all twisted too, like there ain't nobody to guide them. It's a kid raising another kid, and then when that kid grows up, now they all jacked up because they felt neglected, but drugs make them feel good. So now they doing the same drug that their parent done. And it's like now they
That's
now they might have been mad at their parent for not being around or going through whatever addiction that they was going through, and then they go down the same path to see, you know, whether they want to see how it was or whether they just end up going down that same path anyway. Like
I think some of it could be that I remember Nana telling me when I was younger that, you that sometimes when a child gets involved in drugs, if they come from addictive parents, you have those tendencies, like is in your blood, and that you have to make a conscious, like if you know you have a parent that's an alcoholic or that is a drug addict or whatever, that you as a young person have to make a conscious decision not to even try it, because the tendency is there to become addicted, because that's all you know, that's what you've been shown. So she used to always tell me, you know, like when during the era, my mother used to say stuff like, a lot of these kids watch their parents drink, or, and I'm not saying that, you know, drinking causes all that, but what she's talking about is if the person is an alcoholic and they watch those behaviors. And I think that with these kids, the babies of the crack of the, and I hate to call them crackheads, but y'all, that's what they are. But the babies of the crackheads now are in their 30s and mid 40s. So what we're seeing, if you're like in your 50s like me, and you work with some of these people, y'all, I'm gonna tell you, I was at this job, and y'all, when I say that these young people was coming and going as they please, I ain't never seen no shit like this in my life. You're supposed to be at work at 8 o'clock. They coming in at 9:30, quarter to 10, get an attitude if somebody say something to them. And I would come home or call my kids and be arguing at them. And to the point that one time, Scott, remember I called you and was like, when you go to work, act like you got some sense and like you was raised right. And when I got finished arguing, you was like, well, what did I do? You talk about people at your job.
They ain't
This
got no
on
morals. Yeah, they grow up with no morals because they wasn't trained like that. Crack, it breaks people's down. It when a person smokes that, they lose something. You lose something immediately when you do that. Brain cells start dying. Rationalizations goes out the window. Like you start making stupid decisions, and it feels good. It feels good when they make these stupid decisions. So then they don't care what people think. And you make one stupid decision, and then you go. Once you feel bad, you go do some drugs, and you feel better about it. Then you go make another stupid decision on top of that one, and then next thing
it's like a vicious, yeah, it's a vicious
you know,
cycle. And then I don't want to act like I'm giving a person that is addicted an excuse. But here's what I'm saying. When you grow up in a home that there's no structure, there's no there's no love, because your parent is addicted and they have a love for that drug, and you are left as a child to to raise yourself, try to figure out, what you're going to eat. You're not getting school clothes, you're not getting, there's not, they get their little food stamps or something, and they sell get a food stamps to the drug man. When you watch all that happen as a child, unless you have a certain strength that gets you through, and then when you grow up, you can say to yourself, I'm gonna do the total opposite of what my parents did. I'm going to school, I'm gonna try to live right, I'm not gonna try anything. Unless you make a conscious effort to do that, it's so easy for them to fall back into that cycle of doing drugs or getting involved in it.
yeah,
And even
it's all in the culture. It's part of the culture, Even our music, most of the music, some of the music that I like, the stuff that I like, talks about doing drugs and not caring and doing wild, reckless stuff. But if you live your life like that, it's gonna be short. But like some of my favorite rappers just talk about how drugged up they are or how drugged up they can get. So it's definitely just in the culture where, you know, it might be accepted in certain circles and respected in certain hoods. Now,
and you know what? Now, this is why I decided to do this show, y'all, because a lot of times when we have children that are, my son is 32. When we have children that are 32, sometimes we can learn from them, that like where I was joking about this being, oh my God, these are these crackhead kids. If you would have saw my son's face when I said that, it was not funny to him because
No,
when
these
you
are
are,
real people, like real lives. Like they go, I got friends that went to the psych ward because they're having a mental breakdown. It comes to a point where they snap, like when they've lost everything. They've
see,
lost everything.
that's why I wanted to do it. When you had told me about your friend that had gone through this as a child with a parent being addicted to drugs, and now they're in their early 30s and they're out here trying to like just make it in the world, and because they didn't have that strong foundation, they're having difficulties now, like my son just said, this very person that he's talking about ended up in a psych ward. Life became too much for them. They themselves got off into drugs, which they are a young person in their early 30s. And now they are not only dealing with a drug issue, but now they're dealing with the issue of mental health because they're trying to work out all the stuff that happened to them when they were younger, you know, living in that home.
Yeah,
Now, a
the
lot
drug,
of them,
the drug
they,
addiction just numbs the pain. It
you
just
said it what?
it either numbs the pain or in some twisted sense it like brings them closer to their parent, like that whatever parent might have been doing that, it justifies it, like, oh well, they done it, I can do it, or let me see what they went through you know
Oh God. And you know what? That's really, when I really think about it, is really sad. That's the sad part about it because that cycle of abuse, that cycle of addiction, drug abuse is just being, it's gonna be another generation of babies born. But see, here's the difference. Now this is the question. Oh, because this is the question that I wanted to ask everybody. The drugs now are a little bit different than crack. And I wanted to ask anybody out there that's my age, do you know of any crackhead who overdosed and died? Okay. That's the question. Because this is what I think separates the crack era from what's going on now. The drugs that are out there now are killing people. And now I'm just talking from personal experience, y'all. I don't know of any crackhead that I grew up with, that I was a young person with, that we were, I knew of them. I don't know any of them dying from actually like overdosing and dying. But these drugs nowadays that these
off of
kids,
smoking crack.
yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like
Mhm.
I tried to do, what I did is I did a little research on it and I asked, I was looking all around saying, were there people that actually died? Because see, here's the thing. I got friends that was started smoking crack when they were in their early 20s and they still mess around, and they're in their 50s now. So what my question was, could you have, like back in the day when crack was really out there, could you smoke enough where it actually killed you? Now, I think even though the stuff that I found said not really, that it depends on how it was cut. Remember, Scott, you were telling me about that,
Yeah,
and that coke. They said that cocaine, the actual drug cocaine, you could overdose on it, but because crack was cut so different, that's why people weren't dying from it. And with that, Scott, you can open up the phone, and if anyone wants to call in, because I needed to ask some of the people that are my age, did they ever, because see, a lot of these people that are going to watch, they live all over the country, so they had their own experience with that whole crack epidemic, because like I said, it might have hit Cleveland, Ohio in the late 80s, but that's Cleveland. We weren't Chicago, New York, places like that. It probably hit them in the early 80s. You know what I mean? So
yeah.
I wonder, does anyone know someone who actually died from crack, from an overdose of crack? Because that's what scares me about these drugs now, because these kids are actually dying and they're having to hit them with that narcan or whatever that stuff is. And it just, It's just even talking about it.
Now, in my experience, I don't know anybody who died from smoking crack, like actually hitting it and die. Well, no, let me retract that because it there was a guy in this neighborhood that I know, like it's in one of our neighborhoods here in the city, and you know you be out one night and it's like the ambulance. You see the ambulance come and you're like, well, what happened? And then so the story was like, yeah, he hit some stuff and had a heart attack. But
Oh,
like
okay.
I more common, like people die from the stuff that they do after they are high or like trying to get high.
Oh, I get what you're saying. It's the behavior that the drug made them do, like they run out and get hit by a car, or they
Or
jumping
they're
off
trying
shit.
to steal wire from a house and blow up the house or electrocute themselves or something like that, or like they're mainly stuff like that. Like usually they injure themselves, you know while high, and they're high so they don't really feel it you know
Well, that's true because, like I said, that girl that was in the room with me when I had Amber, because it wasn't you, it was when I had Amber, literally gave birth and did not even know. She woke up, I guess she had come down and she was herself again. And she didn't even know where she was. I'm laying over there after I gave birth to your sister, cut every which way but loose. And I'm sitting here like, oh my God, how could she not even know that she went through labor? I mean, literally, she didn't. I had a C-section. She didn't. She actually had a labor, and the nurses, because I had this Jamaican nurse, and she came in the room and asked me, did I want to be moved? Because another thing that I didn't tell you is that she went in the bathroom and smoked some crack. So I had smelled something coming out the bathroom, and it smelled like smoke. So I hit the nurse's button, and when they came in, what happened is she was in a room in the bathroom smoking, I guess, what was left of her crack. And so they rushed in because I had my baby in the room with me, and they were asking me, did I want to be moved? Now, what the little Jamaican nurse told me, she said, well, you're going to be here. I think I was there 3 days, and she was going to be leaving that day. So I said, well, as long as she's leaving, I don't need to be in another room. Just don't bring my baby in here while she's in here, because not only is she going in the bathroom to smoke crack, which she only did that one time, but she was going back and forth in there smoking cigarettes. And you don't supposed to smoke in the hospital. When I had you 32 years ago, you could smoke in the hospital, but by the time I had your sister in 1994, you could no longer smoke in the bathroom, in the hospital, period. So this girl not
those
only
were
gave
good old
birth,
days.
you said those was good. You stupid. Those were the good old days. You are silly. But yeah, you could. This broad gave birth and didn't even know. Y'all, any woman out there that is see, I had two C-sections. I don't know what it is to push and how the baby come out vaginally and everything, but from what I hear, it's bad. So think about it. She was high. She was so high, she didn't even remember going through labor and giving birth. And like I said, that morning they came, they took the baby, and by that afternoon, she was gone. The girl that was rooming with me, she only stayed with me for maybe, it wasn't even a full 24 hours because I woke up and she was there, So she had to come in overnight. Now, I don't know, like, after she left there, did they take her to jail? Did she just get discharged and went on home and her baby went wherever? But y'all, it's just, oh my God, the whole thing about it is sad. And I just wonder where those babies that were born addicted to crack, where are they now? And like, what are their lives like?
In
You know?
jail. They in jail. Or you can see it in the stats of our country. Like if you're paying attention, I know you don't like when I get like real worldly, but I always believe like, you know, a family, makes up a community makes up the town makes up the state, and the state makes up the country. So like it's not too far removed. Like you can see the numbers increase in our jail system. Like just and it just be like stupid stuff. People just need a hand. Like they never, you know, stuff been always messed up for them. They come from people that was jacked up and they never got a chance to see like the right way to do it. Like they never was told about those sorrows.
Yeah, Nana calls it, instead of being raised, that you were drug up. And I believe in their cases, drug up mean that you raised your kids, but you did it the hard way. But I think in the case of kids that were born in a home where the parents are addicted, they didn't even get drug up. They raised themselves. Let me tell them another story. Remember the story I told you about your uncle, where my brother lived in this duplex in Cleveland. It's like a two-family house, and his neighbors had very good jobs. They work, the husband and wife both work at a steel plant in Cleveland. So y'all know, back in the 80s, to make almost $30 an hour back in the 80s, like 20 something dollars an hour, was a lot of money. But what happened is they became addicted to crack, both of them, the mother and the father. And they had a young child that was about 3 years old. So my brother was telling me about them. He couldn't believe that they would jeopardize their jobs getting addicted to crack, and what were they thinking, blah, blah, blah. So one day my brother said he remembered that, he would watch them leave. Like the wife will throw on this beat up wig, because I remember being over there one time, and she would come out with this boom quasha wig on, and she would be going out to turn tricks to make some money for some crack. And the guy would leave. And one day it hit my brother. He said he was in the house and he heard some little footprint, feet pattering, running. So he realized that the parents were gone, and that little 3-year old, or however old that baby was, 3 or 4 years old, was in the house by themselves, and had been being left in the house to fend for themselves at 3 and 4 years old. So what happened is, I think my brother told me that he found a way to get in the house and give the baby some food, and set out some food where the baby could go and pick it up, and eat it, and something to drink and whatever. But what happened is, the baby, I guess my brother wasn't able to do that all the time, and the baby got so hungry one time that they believed that the baby was eating some paint chips, y'all, because the baby had lead poisoning. So what happened is, the state had come in and taken the baby from them, and basically told them they had to, if they wanted the baby back, they had to get their life together. So my brother, I remember my brother helping them scrape the house and paint, and you know get the house set up, make sure there was food in it, clean it up. I remember your uncle doing that, because I remember him being so upset with them, because he was like, why are they throwing their lives away? People are killing to get jobs at steel plants, making, almost $30 an hour, and they smoking up the money, and leaving this baby up in the house. So y'all, that's what it looked like when I was younger. Just think about it. Just say I had 10 friends. Of those 10 friends, I'll just say 8 of them were affected by crack. Either they were selling drugs, and y'all, let me tell you, it wasn't just guys. I got 2 female friends that I know of that were little kingpins, women kingpins themselves. They were selling drugs too, big time. And now, what one of them did though, and this is another thing that happened, Scott, that I was telling you. Remember, I said that some of them who were a little smarter, like they weren't for just making the money then, before they got out the game, as you call it, what they did is they cleaned the money up. They started buying properties, beauty parlors, all kind of little stores. So when they got out of it, they had money. Now some of them was just out there, benzing it out, flashing gold and chains and all that. But you did have some of the fools that were selling drugs clean it up, and fly straight.
Yeah,
Now,
that's what Jay-Z rap about. Yeah, that's
about
yeah. He's a reformed drug dealer, cleaned up his money.
right, so you did have those that saw what was happening, because towards the end of the when, I guess, when it was winding down, when the epidemic, that because it was an epidemic, y'all, just like they're saying that this crack stuff is an epidemic. What my generation went through was an epidemic as well.
You
But
mean the
what
opioid? You mean the opioid? They trying to say that the opioid crisis is an epidemic, or they wouldn't call it an epidemic because the pharmaceutical companies put it out there. So
the reason
epidemic
why,
is that it like spread. They spreaded it themselves. Now they're having
well
a crisis.
hell, what we believe, and a lot of people of my generation will tell you, what we believe is that the government allowed that stuff in our neighborhoods. So epidemic, and when I use the term epidemic, I meant that just simply the fact that this drug spread and it was taking people out. That's what I mean by epidemic.
Yeah,
Now, what the point I'm trying to make is hypocrisy. Let me put that one up again, because if you contrast the opioid crisis versus the crack epidemic, the the opioid crisis is not any more worse than what the crack epidemic was. It wasn't. The difference is who's becoming addicted, because the crack epidemic mostly affected Black communities, and that's why they didn't help us. The opioid epidemic is getting Becky in the suburbs, and her brother Billy is taking them out. So now these white people are like, oh Lord, Becky is addicted to opioids. We need to get some programs in here. Becky is not a criminal. Becky is a victim. Now, Darnell and Keisha back in the 80s, who were addicted to crack, they were considered criminals, and they were put in jail. But
didn't,
Becky,
didn't Keisha throw her baby in the dumpster?
man, quit playing. But Becky and Billy, they are considered victims in today's world, and that hypocrisy is what bothers me. Now, I'm not saying that I don't feel sorry for Becky and Billy in the suburbs, but I watched Darnell and Keisha back in the 80s being hauled off back and forth to jail every 5 minutes. Instead of, when you arrested Keisha, you put her in a rehab center like you did Becky. Keisha was put in jail, which, when you put in jail for having some crack on you, and you in jail 4 or 5 years, and Becky getting help, and she able to clean herself up, and get her kids back, or have some kids, and
There's a whole generation of Black men missing because they were selling drugs. Like, they went to jail and they did time in jail, and then they got out and tried to make it happen and went in for something else. Like, never. It just came and swept up a whole generation, really, and then the kids was left, fatherless, and like it just broke up families. It's another thing to, attack the families.
right. See, another thing is, like, oh, that's what I wanted to talk about. What it did to our families, the aftermath of the crack epidemic. Okay, so if you got the parent giving birth left and right to baby, hold on, y'all. Um, you got them giving birth to these babies left and right. The babies is being raised by Nana. The babies are being put into the system. Hold on. So if you got these babies that's going through all that, it broke up. Okay, our families already were, like, not in a good space because of Reaganomics and the trickle down, which never, no shards of
It
it.
should have
Oh,
been done trickled down by now.
well, I can finally see what people are saying. I wasn't able to see that people were talking. Okay, so I can look at their comments now. So so when you got the after effects of, okay, they took mama and daddy and they in jail. I'm over here, one of us now, and this and another thing. One child might have been put in the system, and the other one might be living with Nana. You know what I'm saying? So that broke down like our family structure. Like
When the
if
one grows up, they like resenting the other one because they went with the family, and the other one was adopted. Yeah,
right.
I've definitely seen that. I've met people, who have grown up in foster care.
Right. And see, that's what bothers me because these white kids, this addicted to these opioids, they helping them in every way. Y'all, I can't say how many
Give them half
times
a chance.
I can't even it gives me chills. I can't even express to y'all how bad that makes me feel. I watch kids that I had went to second, third, fourth, fifth grade, all the way through high school, get addicted to this stuff, and then their lives and their kids' lives mess up. And then so y'all gotta think when I'm watching television now, and I'm like, wait a minute, this an epidemic, but y'all helping them. But I got friends who just now in their 50s getting a relationship with their kids because when we were younger, they was addicted to drugs. The kids was taken from them, and now the kids are back in their life, and the kids don't want to have nothing to do with them because they're mad at them for what they did, and then how the kids' life ended up because of what their parent did, and that's the friends that is running into the kids of the crackheads. That's what you're running into.
Yeah, I just met a guy this year who he was in foster care. He finally met back up with his mom, and his mom, she was on drugs like her whole life. Like she was still on drugs when he came back around. And so he moved in with her after like being in foster care. He was an adult now. And he was trying to get to know his mother and to understand like why he had went to foster care, and it didn't turn out. She never changed. Like she was so burnt out that her emotions, she had no emotions. Like it was all twisted. Her logic, she had fried her brain, and there was no saving her. There was no like redeeming her.
Do
Nothing.
y'all remember the movie Antoine Fisher? Did anybody? Because now that I can see the chat, because I couldn't even see the chat, I didn't even know people were in here. But if you ever saw the movie with Denzel Washington, and it was about the guy, the little young guy that he had got, he was in foster care, and the woman that was his foster mother was abusing him and stuff. Well, I'm gonna tell y'all this about that movie. First of all, the movie was filmed in Cleveland, and I remember working downtown when Denzel Washington was filming that movie. The reason why it was filmed in Cleveland is because Antoine Fisher was from Cleveland. He actually, you remember at the end of the movie when he found his family, and his family that he found lived one street over from my grandmother, and my aunt went to school with Antoine Fisher. But the reason why I bring that up is if you remember when he met his mother, the reason why he was in foster care is because his mother was on drugs. Remember when he goes into the room and and he's talking to her, and they tell you that the how he ended up in foster care was because his father was killed, and I think his mother was on drugs, and look at what happened to him in foster care. The whole reason why that movie was made is because Antoine Fisher, remember when he went to the military and he was having anger issues, and he was raging because of the life that he had had when he was taken from his mother or put into foster care, and what it did to him. You know, he went to the military, but he couldn't even make it because he was carrying all his baggage with him. And that's why, you know, I had Scott when I was 22 years old. I was young. I had went to college and I was in my junior year, and I ended up pregnant, and I had to leave college and get me a job and take care of my baby. And y'all, being young, you're confused. You don't know nothing about raising babies. All I knew is that I had this baby and that I needed to work. And it wasn't his fault that I was stupid and didn't take birth control and had him. And I needed to make our little home make sense. Give him a stable home. That was my job. And what I know about raising kids is if they don't come from stability, it messes them up later on. And that's why, just when my friend had said that thing about these are those crackhead babies, at first I chuckled. But then when I was talking to my son, I was like, you know what? She got a point here. Where are those crack babies? And now that I can see the chat, Scott asked, why wasn't crack considered a crisis? The only thing I could say is because we was black. And y'all, I know that they claim that we always, throw that black thing up, but I'm sorry. That's the only thing I can come up with. Because think about it, y'all. What's the difference? What's the difference of the people that's on opioids and the people that were on crack? What is the difference? You know, the only difference is that these people that are addicted now are white. Is they're suburban, and they not about to have Becky and Billy out here all fucked up for the rest of their life.
Yeah,
What do you think is the
now
difference?
now in the news they got, it's this I know you've done heard about that family that they're accusing, they're super rich now. They're accusing them of the opioid crisis. Have you heard of that?
I I saw something
What's the
about
name
that,
of this family? I'm trying to think of the name of this family.
and
Yeah.
they were selling. I did see the pills, the oxys, and all that stuff.
Oh
And
yeah.
y'all, oh, let me just tell them this, okay, y'all. I work at a health insurance company. Let me tell y'all something. The people there, it is so many, and this is my generation now. We talking about. I had a spine surgery, and I took a medicine. I don't take it anymore. They help. They give it to people that have what was that, Scott? That I told you. I can't even think. They
Seizures.
Yeah, they have seizures. They give it to epileptics because I have nerve damage. So one day, y'all, I had taken out a pill. I ate my lunch and I was about to take my medicine for my spine. This one woman ran all up to me and was like, "What is that you taking? Oh, I bet you that's the good stuff." So what I started noticing is some of the people that I work with was popping pills all day. I can tell y'all a whole story about this woman, this white lady that I work with that lived right around the corner from me. How many times she done called me or came over my house trying to buy my pills from me. And what I had to tell her eventually is like, look, girl, they give me 30 days worth. My damn spine is messed up. I didn't got time to be selling no damn pills because if I sell all my pills to you, then I'm gonna be the rest of the month messed up. Let me tell y'all what happened. I'm a really easygoing person. So I was like, no, I can't give you my pills. Scott, you should remember this. No, but my daughter is an ass kicking, take no prisoners type of girl. So my daughter had came home for college. She had graduated from college and everything. And I was telling her about this lady begging for my pills every 5 minutes. Can she please have some? Now, y'all, I made a mistake one time and gave her two. She was saying until I peeped what she was about, I thought she had the same issue that I did. But then when she kept asking for it, I realized she was getting high on it. So I had told my daughter about this. And Sky Amber was like, she had called, the lady called me and she wanted to borrow $20. So
Oh,
I was like, she gave me this sob story. I felt all sorry for her. So I was like, well, I don't have 20, but I'll give you 10, even though I did have the money. So Amber, when I got off the phone, she was like, Mom, now you shouldn't be giving that lady any pills, blah, blah, blah. So when she came over, do you know Amber snatched open the door, told the lady off, and slammed the door in her face? I was like, oh my God. Amber was like, don't give her any pills, Mom. It's a whole, basically what your sister was telling me is a whole bunch of people out here that literally live on pills. I didn't know that the medication that I took, people was getting high on. Let me read what Sober is Sexy is saying. It said, a lot of my drug kingpin friends are now being released. Ooh, facts. Now being released from prison. They are working as activists in the communities they helped destroy in the 80s. Kim Kardashian just had one release here in DC. See what I mean, Scott? I told you that a lot of the kids, and I call them kids, even though they're in their 50s now, a lot of the kids that I went to school with, they have been in jail all them years, and they're just getting out in their late 30s, early 40s, late 40s. So she's right. She is right. They were.
Sober and sexy. Who is that person that Kim Kardashian let out of jail? Like who was that person? Just respond in the chat or call in. We'll continue though. Go ahead. Go ahead, Mom.
Oh, and she said young girls learn how to sell their bodies to survive, which help the now disrespect of young. That is so true because I wasn't gonna tell this story, but because it was so disgusting. But I'm gonna go ahead and tell it. One time when I was younger, I think I was Scott. You probably was 5 by that time, so I was 27 at that time. I went over a friend's house. And again, we're sitting on the porch like young people do, chilling. It's summertime. We sitting out there. And across the street from her was a dope house. Okay. And the boy, not where they're taking the dope, is where a dope dealer lived. And he was selling drugs. So the little crackheads in the neighborhood knew that that was where they could buy some drugs. So this one girl kept, I guess she had kept coming over, begging them for drugs. She didn't have no money. And I guess she offered them to, suck their little thing or whatever. And they said no. They basically told her they was tired of her sucking their thing. I'm not lying. I know y'all think this is crazy. So they had some pit bulls on the porch. I hope y'all know where this is going. They had some pit bulls on the porch. They had one pit bull and a German Shepherd, and they were on the porch. I guess those were for protection. What they told her to do is if she would have sex with the dog. Oh, even when I think about this, if she would have sex with the dog, then they would give her a rock. Now, what I will tell y'all is this: my friend's brother, when when he realized what was about to happen, he made us go in the house. He was like, "No, this is too much," like So he made us go in the house. So when I was asking them, "Why don't y'all just move?" Like this, you living across the street, this is dangerous. He said, "Look, this is where I grew up. This is where I want to be. He said, I'm scared. He literally was scared to call the police on them. Like, because I guess they kind of knew in the neighborhood who was for them. See, a lot of times when a lot of stuff was going on, just like in New Jack City, you remember when they took over that apartment and they were throwing those people out the apartment and they had terrorized the neighborhood? That's what the drug dealers was doing back in the 80s when I was younger. They would come in and they would terrorize people to the point where they had to live there, but they wouldn't call the police and turn them in because they would be scared that their doors would be kicked in the middle of the night. They come in and beat them up or, rob their houses. Y'all, it was just crazy. It was just crazy. I'm just reading their comments. She said, the person is 55 years old. She right, because I'm 54 and that person is my age.
Yeah, I met a bunch of guys, uh, older guys. Now, not every older guy is, stupid, but I met some
Ain't
older
got
guys.
nothing.
I met some older guys that
Not
they,
you gonna say not every older guy is stupid.
but check it out though. Like, so they had been gone, like I would like to think that I'm the generation of Obama. Like this is Obama's generation. And in that movie, The Butler, it was like all those generations. And so
Hmm.
this is a new generation. And so we had this older generation trying to tell this new generation, not to make the same mistakes that they made, you know. And it's like it's almost too late. It's like, where have you been? Like it ain't gonna help me. Like the kids of these people is like, it ain't gonna help me to not make the same mistakes. Like you done it and you're still here, or
Yeah.
you made it through. And
Oh, I see what you're saying. It's like they're saying, "Well, you did it. How can you tell me?"
yeah, it's kind of like hypocritical, and then like it's like, oh, I'm gonna do it better. I'm gonna do it better than you. Like, this is where you messed up at. This is where you
You mean
messed
the
up
people
at.
that's selling it or the people that's taking it? The people that's
Both, both.
oh,
Like
Yeah, you know what? I
that's just another reason to like continue to do drugs. Oh, you're doing this different than the next crackhead.
now I'm gonna just say this that never ceases to amaze me, but I guess you have to be that type of person. So certain drugs, like okay, I think what helped me is because I was scary, and I didn't really get into all that stuff. But now that we know that certain drugs will take you out of here, certain drugs will do this to you, it always amazes me that people will take that first hit or shoot themselves up that first time because they know going in the possibility of addiction, and that.
Some people like a little danger. It's a little danger. It's a little excitement in that. It's a little risk of the unknown.
I
And
want to read what she's saying about this Raphael Edmonds. She said Raphael Edmonds, the biggest crack kingpin. See what I mean, Scott? Remember I was telling you about those kingpins? She said in the country was the roundaway guy here in DC. He's being released very soon for his cooperation. Oh, ooh. His plan is to become a community activist. Great. Oh, yeah. And she said she lived it as a girlfriend turned addict. Oh, now a community activist. Good for you. Because that's what I was saying. I said that when I think about my friends and sober and sexy, this is what I want to say to you. When I think about my friends, it hurts me. You know how you got friends that you've been knowing, so, okay, say I met them when I was 8 and I'm 54 now. So I've been knowing them for 46 years. So they're past the point of being friends. They're almost like my cousins now. So when I meet back up with one of them now and they tell me something like, yeah, girl, I was on that stuff for a many a year and this is what it did to my life. It hurts me. It hurts me for them because the narrative that people put out about a person that becomes addicted is there's something wrong with them. They try to make it seem like it's something bad about them where they were destined to do that. That's not
usually
true.
the like the it seems like they may come to it in despair, right? They
No,
may,
this what I'm saying, Scott. This is the point I'm trying to make. When people got addicted to crack, first of all, our generation didn't know what it was. They just thought it was okay to lace their weed with it, which y'all generation is lacing y'all weed with stuff too. And I know but our generation, that's what they were lacing it with. Okay. So here's what I'm saying. I always say this, they made a mistake. The mistake cost them a part of their life. So they paid in spades for a mistake that they made when they were younger. And that's the part that bothers me because now they have sympathy for addicts. But when I was younger, there was no sympathy or empathy for them. They treated them like criminals. And that's the part that bothered me. If you are feeling sorry for somebody who's addicted to pills, what was the difference? An addict is an addict, whether you're an alcoholic, you're doing pills, whether it is an addict is an addict. And it just, when I look at my friends and I think of, you know, the amount of years that it took from their lives and how sorry they are. They are sorry for not only what they did to their kids, what they did to themselves. Because what do Nana always tell us? The first law of man is yourself, is to protect and take care of yourself. So imagine being 50 years old and maybe you were addicted to crack, say 15 years of your life. That's 15 years that you don't have, that was lost. And oh, sober and sexy, she says she's crying, she lost so many friends, some survived. She's right. Some people couldn't take it, they killed themselves, or like my son said, there were things that they did while they were high that took them out of here. Like I even, Scott, remember when I told you I when I was a teenager, I had this gay friend. He was gay ever since we was in elementary school, and when we went to middle school, he just started dressing like a girl. Well, I had gotten found some of my friends that I grew up with on Facebook. And you know how you get to asking about, well, what happened to whoever? What happened to this person? So he's one of the people that I asked about. And they told me that he died when we were in our early 20s. Now, they don't know what he died from, because you also got to remember that back then, not only did we have the crack epidemic, but we found out about AIDS too. So I don't know if he died from AIDS because he was gay. I don't know what he died from. But the point I'm trying to make is, a lot of stuff that we got ourselves into when we were younger, it messed up our lives. And I say to myself now, but what is that old saying that they say, when this could have been you, but for the grace of God, there go I. I could never point my finger at anybody for being on it, because I had crackhead friends that sat right beside me and fired up some crack, and I didn't even know what it was. And if I would have been a different type of person when I was younger, it could have been me. I only escaped because I was a nerd that didn't do anything and a late bloomer. That's the only reason, because 8 out of 10 of my friends was affected by it. And that's really bad. And she said she was working to two full-time job, and was told crack would keep me. Oh, see what I mean? See what I mean, Scott? We didn't know what it was. Like our generation, we just heard, now this is my friends telling me this. A lot of my friends simply said they thought that it was simply like this little drug that you could lace your weed with. And they didn't know that it was gonna, like my friend said, he was addicted within
Take
three
your
weeks.
soul.
Huh?
They didn't know it was gonna take their soul.
Right. They didn't know what they were smoking, and they didn't know the effect that it was going to have on them. They didn't realize that they were going to get addicted so quick. They didn't realize that it was going to have them out there selling their, but they didn't know. And that part, see, that's another contrast with
Yeah,
this open.
and really anybody can be addicted to it. It doesn't even take an addictive personality. This drug is so powerful that anybody, if they tried
True.
it, would be addicted to it. That's something that, you know, uh, my stepdad told me. He said that if I tried it, that I would like it. If you try any of this stuff, that you're gonna like it, even if you don't have an addictive personality. Like crack it's a man-made thing, and it wasn't made for any medical reason. It was made for money. It was made to make
Right.
money. Like it was made
Right.
to break you and want make you want more. So it's not anything physically that's positive from it. It just the positive once you get in the game is the person making the money. You know?
Right. And that's why when I did the little like promo video at the end, I ended with money, because anybody who lived through that time, and this is why at first when I was younger, I didn't believe that. I was like, oh, it's always the government, my friends tripping, they just trying to make an excuse. But now that I'm older and I understand things a little bit better, I'm kind of wondering, back in the 80s, did some of those politicians have their hand in that crack epidemic, getting money from it, keeping the heat off the big time dope dealers, that was bringing cocaine in from Florida up through that whole little thing on up to the rest of the country. I'm wondering, did they have a hand in that? And that's why it was allowed to get so bad, because it wasn't affecting their neighborhoods. It was affecting black people, and they didn't care. See, now the only difference why they getting involved is because, like I said, it's affecting white kids. And she says those that fought that addiction from crack years later found out that they had AIDS, mainly due to all the sex they had pulling tricks for cracks. That's true. And then she said, yes, they did. Remember our mayor? Oh, yeah. I forgot about that. Scott. Okay, I got to tell my son this. Did you know about this mayor in Washington, D.C., who they caught on tape smoking crack back in the
Nah,
day?
nah.
It was a black mayor, and they have all kind of video of him in this hotel room. I have forgot all about that. And he got caught. smoking crack. Well, y'all know the president of Canada, little chubby white guy, he had got caught up and remember he was smoking crack. And this was just a couple years ago.
You talking about it wasn't the president of Canada. It was like one of our guys.
No, it was a Canadian guy.
Was it
It
a
was a
Canadian
Canadian.
dude?
Yeah, the Canadian, I don't know if he's is their equivalent called president or whatever, but he was caught on tape. A little chubby. When we get off of this, I'm gonna show you him, and you're gonna be like, "Oh, I remember this because I think you the one who told me." She said her boyfriend sold to a lot on Capitol Hill. Girl, let me tell you something. I lived, I lived, okay, I didn't live down the way, but I lived a little bit because we called the hood in Cleveland down the way. So I lived a little bit up from down the way. There was a house that was across the street from me. It was across from my mother. And I used to, every time I would go over there, I would tell my mother, I think they selling drugs across the street. Now, my mother was oblivious to the whole crack area. She didn't even know what was going on. She didn't even know. Crackheads used to be running up trying to wash her windows. And my mother's like, oh, they're so nice. And I'm like, don't get out the car, don't crackheads. But anyway, I used to be over my mother's house, and it was this house that it was cross street. Let me tell you what you would see pull up. You know how like you a guy that drive for a company and you might be driving the company's little van, the company's car, or so across the street, whoever this was that was selling drugs was not standing on the corner. They had people coming to their house. And I could not get my mother to believe that all these different cars that was pulling up was not one raggedy car. They were Benzes, back in the day, whatever was the big cars, there were company cars, Pepsi, cars from, y'all know how like when somebody worked for the government, the city, their license plates will say like they'll let you know that it's a city car. So I was telling my mother, I was like, look at all of you can sit on this porch. Don't nobody have that much company every single day. You know, they don't have company like that every day. Uh, but all these cars was pulling up, and my mother was like, no, they're just friendly. You know, you're thinking, okay. I told her,
Trap spot. That was a trap house.
yeah, but they sold to a little bit more, I guess, upper, like they didn't have like just crackheads like the raggedy ones looking pulling
Oh,
up. They
yeah,
these
anybody could get addicted to it. Like, yeah, it didn't. You didn't have to be black to be addicted to it. Like,
like look what she said. She said her boyfriend sold to a lot on Capitol Hill. Listen to that. And that's why I believe the government has something to do with it. And then she said they were diplomats, and she's right, because when they work for the city and they're driving like a city car, or like on their, you know how it's got on the license plates, it'll say,
yeah,
you know that it's a like a federal, you know what I'm saying. I can't even talk because she
it's an
tripping me out.
undercover car. It's the
No,
fake car.
they're city employees, and you know how when
Yeah,
you a city and you drive a city car. So that's what she's saying. That did you read what she put? She said that
yeah,
this person they sold to worked on Capitol Hill, and they was a diplomat, and he sold to them. And another thing, and then in a little bit we gonna get out of here. But another thing that really got me is how some of the guys that I grew up with, it changed their lives. Now, I'm going to say what they were doing was wrong because they basically had a hand in tearing up their own neighborhoods by selling drugs to single mothers that were on welfare, that, single mothers period, or the guys in the neighborhood. But a lot of them turned their lives around and they went legit, and now they own businesses and stuff. And I don't know how to feel about that. Am I mad at them that the money that they got it was ill got, as my mother say? Y'all know what I mean? Like, on the one hand, they did get up out the hood, but basically the way they got up out of it is through selling drugs to their friends, mothers, and brothers, and all of that.
yeah. It's like the Tupac song say, "Yeah, I made a G today, but you made it in a sleazy way."
Right. Yeah, they came up out the neighborhood by selling drugs. Because y'all, I'm gonna go back to this one boy that I grew up with. I saw him when I was about 27, and when I was walking down the street pushing this boy that's on here with me now in a stroller. I had to be younger because if you were in a stroller, you wasn't no 5 years old, so you had to be like two maybe. So I was about 24. And he pulled up alongside me in the Benz, and we jumped all out. And it was like, "Hey, Rachel, I haven't seen you in years," and blah blah blah. And even then, when I was looking at his car, and he had told me that he had been in jail for a few years. And I said, "Well, when you know how you like, well, you straight now, you're not selling that stuff no more." And he couldn't say no. But when we were younger, he was big time. Like everybody knew him. He was big time in our city. And he was one of my friends. I went to elementary school with him. And so I don't know if how do we look at it, y'all? Did they get out the neighborhood? Somebody said it was blood money. Yeah, it was. And then what it did to our kids, because like Scott said, some of his friends now who are in their 30s, my son's 32, some of them are addicted.
Oh yeah.
I mean, they're not they're suffering the consequences of what they went through. She said, "I have been using the tag name Sober is Sexy for years due to my experience." All right. I know that's right. Because like I said, you can't everybody who do drugs is not a bad person. Some people fall into it think just trying to have fun. You know what? This why like I have a thing for young people. I say we all make mistakes. Some of those mistakes, you pay for the rest of your life. But when you're young, because I told my kids, go out in this world, you're young, have fun, blah blah blah. Because once you get older, those days are over. Like now it's not my time, it's my kids' time. But don't do something when you out there that you don't recover from until you're my age, and then you lose so many good years of your life. Let me read what she's saying. Just like we didn't know the impact of crack, neither did the drug dealers, but by the time they figured out the damages, the dealers were. Scott, remember I told you that? Read what she said. Remember I said that they get addicted to that life? You said that too. The money, it's addictive. When you making five, six, seven, 8,000, $9,000 in a day, this one guy that I was telling y'all about, he would come pick his money up in his Benz at night. He would roll through the neighborhood, hit the corners, getting his money, or either them boys would bring that money to him. He got so big, he wasn't even out selling no more. He had people doing it for him. Facts.
Oh yeah. And don't think that this epidemic, like, did it came and went. It's still here. It's like it still exists to this day. It never went anywhere. It came and it is here now.
I think it probably peaked like in the 80s and 90s. It was crazy. Like, and I think what happened is that's when it was at the frenzy. And now the people that are messing with it, like it's like you said,
They
it's
they
still
hear about it and they dabble in it, and then next thing you know, they're deep in it.
right. Yeah, so I think that nowadays that the people they missed the I call them the cracky 80s, y'all,
They missed the
because
warning signs.
right, they missed the era that crack was like really crazy, and
It's just like with the hippie movement. Like there might still be some hippies today. It's some people who glorify that era and wanted to be a part of it. Like
well, also too that the crack era begot the what y'all call this rap that y'all have now. See, we have
trap
bubblegum rap.
music, trap
The
music,
no, the gangster rap. It
trap
begat.
music.
Well, I only can describe what I remember. Remember anybody who's my age. Remember when back in the 80s we had and I'm not gonna try to sing, but we had the Sugar Hill Gang, y'all, and we had
Hip hop,
clean rappers.
the hip
then
hop.
and then what happened is all this drug stuff, and then the some of the rappers, like you said, came from the drug world selling drugs. So they was rapping about, I'm 54. So they was rapping about what they were doing in their own life. So that begat that gangster rap. Because see,
Trap
before
music, my trap music. Just
well
say trap
trap
music. Okay.
Trap music. I'm 54. I'm gonna call it gangster rap because
No, because it's different. Gangsters is selling drugs. They might be killing people, but they got a reason. The trap music is just drugs, glorifying drugs.
oh, I see what you're saying.
It's
Okay.
just
Well, I'm
about the
54. I didn't
lifestyle
know,
of
honey.
selling drugs.
Look, child, your mama old. I told you I barely even drank beer. I was telling him before we came on, y'all. I said when I was in college, let me tell y'all, when I was in college, I went to Kent State, and the okay, you could buy like a cup of beer. I think it was a quarter. So y'all, if I had $1.25, I'd be drunk and throwing up and everything. But what happened is I learned very early that I couldn't even drink beer because I was that friend that you had to carry out after 3 beers because I'm throwing up and all that. So y'all, and this is why I'm bringing this up. When I put out the promo that I was going to do this show, somebody came into my comments and said, "Oh, you probably was a crackhead." And I said, they said I sounded like one. And I was thinking to myself, if they only knew that I do not drink, good old fashioned hangover cured me of ever drinking again. And I did this very young. I'm the type of person I could have fun without drinking and all of that. I love to laugh. So when you drunk, you're laughing and falling out. So I don't want to fall out. I just want to laugh. But I deleted that comment because I was in there like, oh my God, these people think that I was a drug addict. No, a lot of people that I love, a lot of people that I love and that I care about because, like I said, some of the people that I grew up with I'm closer to them than I am my family members. And to see what that drug did to my friends, and now just talking to my son and hearing about these people that he is meeting today who are those crackheads kids, and how these kids are having these young, because I can't call them kids, these young adults that are in their 30s and 40s, they're having problems, and it's not physical. I guess it's coping. Would you call it that, Scott? Like they're having problems coping?
Definitely, and they use the drugs to help them. So yeah,
Oh, okay. Yeah, they're having, and then to think about it, y'all, one of his friends that is his age, exactly 32, she was in a mental institution. She MY Carter said I was extremely shy and drinking and drugs made me less shy. Now, you know something, my Carter, I never did drugs, but when I was younger, when I was like 19, 20, 21, and I did try to drink beer, because if you in your 50s, you remember when we were 19, you could buy beer legally. So I would get beer and drink it, and it would, because I was real shy too. And she's right, it makes you able to dance and talk to boys, and you just feel a little bit more ladylike. But y'all, I had a good old hangover in college where I ended up in the college infirmary, and they was threatening to call my mother. Literally, I had drank so much beer, y'all, that I believe I had alcoholic poisoning, and my friends had, because I had a hangover that lasted more than 2 days. So on the second day, my friends took me to the college. You know how you got a little clinic on the campus, and they admitted me. And when they were threatening to call my mother, I was like, this is it, because kill me now, because if she come up here. And you know what I told them? I said, look, I think I was like, I think it happened on my 21st birthday. I was like, I am an adult, and I do not give you permission to call her. So they couldn't call her. But that's what cured me of, really drinking, is them hangovers, y'all. I'm not even 5 feet tall. I'm like 4'11. So I couldn't handle it. And it saved me. But what you're saying is the whole reason why I was doing it is what a lot of young people say, is to fit in, to have fun, to seem like I was cool. And to be honest, looking back, I don't even know if I liked drinking. You know what I mean? I don't.
I had a whole bunch of white friends, and they used to be doing all types of designer drugs. They'd come out, they'd have like 6 different drugs out, and they'd be doing them, and they'd be offering me each drug. I'll be like, no, I'm good. I'm gonna watch you do it first, and then and then
Remember that time when you told me that you had went to a hotel party and them white kids was in there? trying. What did you tell me? You said that they were getting high and then doing all kinds of weird stuff, and you got your backpack. It was like, I'm out because if
Oh
something
yeah,
happened.
yeah. It was like Special K or something, some new drug that had hit the city, and that people didn't know about. It was this something called Special K, and I don't know if it was eye drops or what this was. Like basically, a drop of it would have you tripping out. Like I don't know if it was like an acid derivative or
Oh my
what
God.
it was.
Now,
Like
remember what I told you. Now, I'm going to tell you something else that I noticed about this generation, the ones that are in their 30s. A lot of them smoke marijuana, my child included, and they have no problem telling us as their parents that there's nothing wrong with it. It comes from the earth. So, after all these years, y'all, even though I know that he does, I told him, don't discuss it with me. I don't want to know about it. But this is what I asked him.
you didn't have to let YouTube know neither.
Well, they know now because y'all generation don't make no bones about it. The kids that I work with is his age. They be like, look, it come from the earth, blah, blah. But let me just tell you what I told him. And then we're near the end. I had asked him one time, because you know how we as parents, we'll watch a documentary and then we'd be like, oh, Lord, I'm going to have that talk with my child. So I think I was watching a documentary about like these harder drugs. So I needed to ask him. I said, look, when you hanging with these white kids, you ain't trying none of that crazy stuff. He let me fuss and argue at him. Scott, you should remember this. And you had told me, look, Mom, I'm not crazy. Now, let me tell you, he makes no bones about his, his reefer smoking, but he was like, I am not crazy. He said, I do not do anything other than that. He said that he has watched his friends do that other stuff and then them have them flip out sessions. You remember you had told me that, Scott?
Oh yeah, like yeah, when they get too high off of like coke or crack, like you can't feel no more. So the only option is to cut yourself. Like
Oh, that's right. I
you
forget
need
about
to
that boy.
know
You
that
told
you
me to cut
yeah,
itself.
yeah, you need to know that you still like a human being. Yeah, and smoked your brain out so much that you don't know what you are, who you are. You're like, do I bleed still? Am I a person?
Y'all, he told me, let me tell you, let me just tell him quickly what he said. He said he was at one of those hotel parties and the little young white boy had got so high that he had started cutting himself and blood was dripping all over everywhere. And my child said, look, I got my backpack and I was out. He said, because when,
We had to take him to the hospital. We had to take
oh,
him to the hospital.
and see, you see what I'm saying? So this stuff that these kids are doing, these drugs, like I said, crack was bad, but I think what it is these drugs that they have out here now are, I think, I don't, they're harsher. That's the only way that I can put it. I think because, like I said, I don't know if
They're
anyone,
stronger. Like they're stronger.
yeah,
They take years to mature. Even with the weed. I mean, weed is a different strain from what they had back in the day. Like it's
yeah, I don't know. Like I said, I don't know if there was anyone from my generation, and I gotta look that up, to actually die from from crack. I really want to know that, like from the actual of smoking of it, not the after effects. But see, what scares me about these drugs nowadays is these drugs are killing these kids,
yeah,
and
it's
that's the
definitely
part.
demonic. It definitely has a demonic frequency. If you talk to Jesus, he will save you. Drugs are demonic though. Like most of those drugs that make you do the crazy stuff, you lose frequency with your creator. You on a whole nother vibe. You don't know what's going on. You know.
Yeah, I must say this, and then we're gonna wrap it up because we're nearing that 2 hour mark. I wanted to say thank you everybody for sharing this time with us. It was a discussion that me and my son had, and it it piqued my interest in what other people thought about it, and like, did we realize that it's been 40 years since the crack epidemic? And we make jokes about crackheads and stuff, like, they, some of these sitcoms and some of these comedians, they'll talk about and make jokes about the a crackhead, but when you live through that time, you can laugh a little bit, but it takes you back to that time and all your friends that were affected by it. And then when I talked to him, my son, and he said, like, he wasn't like, I joked about it, I giggled, and he was like, Mama, I don't think that's funny. Some of my friends are the kids of those crackheads and they're having problems. And that's why we did this today. Um, and Tina is saying the aftermath is still real. And that's what my son is saying, that is, is still out there. I thought that some of these newer drugs had pushed it to the side, but I guess not. See, I'm not sure.
They just do all of them now. Like
Yeah.
they, Molly Percocet, they rap about it. It says songs. You're doing it all now. I'm on everything. It's just a compound of things. That's why nowadays people die from stuff.
Yeah. Well, y'all, thank you for hanging out with us. Scott, you want to thank them? And then we're going to
Thank
get out of
you.
here. Me and him about to have dinner. I
Thank
made
you for
some
listening to
chili.
us.
Yeah, I made some chili because it's thank you so much. I made some chili and I'm about to go sit down you know how I'm one of those mothers that like to sit at the kitchen table and talk. And me and Scott will do this every Sunday. We're gonna every Sunday that he's wanting to hang with me. We're gonna do this and we'll pick a topic and we'll come in and talk about it. And we would like for you guys to call in sometimes, because just reading, the stuff in the chat, it affected me. And I just, when I get off, I want to talk to my son about it. But
Yeah,
y'all
we would
take
love to
care.
hear your voices and your opinions. You can be on the show with us and give your input, verbally.
Right.
Be a part of the show.
Yeah, but we'll be here, and if you look on Mondays, I'll put out the topic that we're going to talk about, and then we used to do it on Saturday, but Scott need to watch football, so he made me change it to Sunday, and that's why we're doing it Sunday, which seems to work a little better. You guys take care. Thank you for hanging with us. Be safe out there. Scott, you want to say bye?
Love, peace, love, and happiness.
You are so freaking stupid. Y'all take care. We ended it now. Bye bye. Have a good Sunday night. Bye bye.